This is the McDowell County Senior Center Scams, Fraud, Safety, and Shred Day. We are glad that you're joining us here live today, or also at your home or online. Thank you for joining us. Starting off this morning in just a moment is Stephanie Bias. She works with North Carolina Department of Insurance in the North Carolina Seniors Health Insurance Information Program, and also the North Carolina SMP Seniors Medicare Patrol. She has a long title. And so she'll be talking about Medicare and also the Senior Medicare Patrol Program. And then at 10:30, we have a representative from the McDowell County Sheriff's Office talking about safety in the home and also in the community. And our keynote speaker today will be Andy Nesworth, a retired FBI agent. He'll be talking on the subject of government imposter scams, veteran scams, and keeping your identity safe. Oh my, is the title of that presentation. And first up, we have Stephanie Bias. Please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you so much for the invitation to be able to come and talk with you folks today. I left Raleigh this morning at 5 minutes till 5 to get here. And I told Waylon, I said, Waylon, I would do this for you because he's always such a delight to work with, as well as everybody here at the Senior Services and the Senior Center. And we thank you so much for everything that y'all do Monday through Friday and even on the weekends to help folks to make sure that they have the services that they need or the information that they need. I bring you greetings this morning from your Insurance Commissioner, Mike Causey, and from the staff of the Seniors Health Insurance Information Program. Your SHIP Regional Manager used to be Catherine Fannin, and she retired. And you are now fortunate to have Billy Lister. Billy Lister is from Ashe County. She's over a county or so away, but she has the Western region now, and she is a dynamo presenter, and she has a heart for this program. But I've worked for the Department of Insurance. I have 38 years of state government service. Retirement is 30. So I can't add, evidently. And but I love what I do. I love being able to talk with the seniors about this information that we have to share with you folks. How many folks in this room have ever heard of a shade tree mechanic? You have. What does a shade tree mechanic do?
Anything to get it done without the proper equipment.
Anything to get it done without proper equipment. Well, in 1966, when Medicare went into, and Medicare cards first came out, it was passed in law in 65 but implemented in 66. There was a shade tree mechanic that worked on lawnmowers. He worked on lawnmowers. That's when you could work on things. And, you know, now you probably have to just go and buy you a new one. But he worked on lawnmowers. And he had an 11-year-old granddaughter who loved to spend the summers with him, and the mail ran, and he said, go to the mailbox, get the mail. She brought it back, and she said, it's something from the government. And he said, well, open it up. My hands are dirty. See what it is. He said, well, it's a Medicare card. He says, I don't need that. I'm retired from Southern Railway. I don't need that. He said, well, he said if he had questions, go inside and call his congressman's office. Who was his congressman? Jim Boyhill. Called Jim's office and said, you know, I'm going to send this back to somebody that might need it worse than I do. And he said, well, the aide in there said, you know what, that's great. I'm glad that you recognize that you already have your insurance, but you've got to keep that because your Medicare through the Railroad Retirement Board becomes your primary insurance, and then your other railroad insurance becomes your secondary. And that gentleman said, well, who's in charge of this Medicare program? And the aide in Boyhill's office said, well, the U.S. government is in charge of it, but the Congress tells them what to do. He said, well, you mark my words. If Congress is in charge of it, he said they'll create an agency to oversee it, and it was used to be called the Healthcare Financing Administration, but now it's called CMS. And he said, and you mark my words, they will create another government agency to explain it to people. And they did, and those were called Seniors Health Insurance Assistance Programs in all 50 states and now the 6 territories. That man didn't have a lot of years of formal education, but that man was my grandfather. And I was his 11-year-old granddaughter that picked up his card that day. So every day that I educate somebody about Medicare, what to think, what to see, what to know, what to do, what to not give out, what to give out, I feel like I honor my granddaddy's memory. I feel like I honor his memory, because it's confusing. And you know, you're very fortunate because, I mean, there's some people that probably can make big money doing this kind of thing, but, you know, the services of SHIPs and S&Ps are free. So we, you know, unfortunately with a good program like Medicare, also comes the fraud piece. And that's where I work, is the fraud aspect of this. $68 billion was lost in this country last year to Medicare fraud. How can they get your Medicare number? Or how can they fraud your Medicare? What's your identifying number? It's what? It's your Social Security number, but a few years ago, it changed to a random number because Social Security numbers are the biggest form of identity theft that is out there. So back when Hurricane Florence came through in North Carolina, the new Medicare cards were being mailed out to folks. Well, guess what happened? Down east North Carolina, going to the Outer Banks, their mail was delivered the week that Florence went through to that rural route. And the new Medicare cards are in there. So they were into Duck Sound, the Core Sound, all the inlets, whatever, all their mail. And I was down there working for DOI because we were in the crisis team. And our lady at our hotel that was our manager, she said, I know y'all worked all day and I hate to ask you to do that, but could you help some of these folks? They're very concerned because they knew the Medicare cards were coming. And I did. I said, you put on those cookies and put us on a pot of coffee. We're going to go in the little breakfast room, and I'm going to take them in one by one, and we're going to get on the phone with 1-800-MEDICARE, because I could get straight through because I have a unique ID to be able to do that. And we can get them a new number implemented, stop that number, and they can give them the address where they're going to get mail until they're able to go back home. So while I had worked all day long, it didn't bother me at all to help those 20 people that were staying at the hotel, because those people needed help. They didn't want their identity stolen. Well, now that the new Medicare numbers are no longer your Social Security number, people say, well, how did anybody go ever remember that? You put your number in, you put your card in your little card holder, and I've stood behind people at doctor's offices and at pharmacies, and they're holding it up with their card just like this. And what am I standing behind them with, talking to them? Phone. What all these phones have on them now? Cameras. I could take a picture of their card and go out and use it, because remember, the new Medicare cards don't have your signature line on there. They used to on the old ones. And they don't have your picture on there like a driver's license. But guess what big scam is out now? People are saying, you can trade your paper card in and get a plastic one, like a credit card. That is a scam. Do not fall for it. Even if it shows up on caller ID that I'm calling from Medicare, they're not calling from Medicare. They're calling to fish and get the information from you that they need so that they can scam you. And they're going to sell your number that you give to them and say, just send me a replacement card that's plastic. They're going to sell it to somebody who doesn't have insurance. And what are they going to do? They're going to go get services under your name. How many folks in this room open and read their Medicare statements and check them for accuracy? You need to open those statements and check them for accuracy. You open up your MasterCard bill, your Belk's bill, your Penny's bill, your Sears bill, your gas bill. You're not going to pay for somebody that's gone to the local mall and charged up stuff on your card and you haven't been to the mall since before COVID. Same thing with your health insurance. When you call the doctor's office and you ask to make an appointment to see Dr. Jones, some people say, well, I don't want to tell them all that information when I call and ask. You need to tell them you want to talk about your nose, your throat, your toe, your ear, because that's what they're going to allocate the time for. Okay? That's what they're going to allocate the time for. And they say, well, we're going to run some tests. What kind of tests are you going to run? Write that down. When will I know the results of those tests? And do I need to make an appointment, or will you be calling me? Now, I know that probably a lot of you in here are technology savvy. And we are all into technology when it comes to our health care. But a couple of years ago, I have to tell you the dirty laundry. A couple of years ago, I had to have my cataracts done. Went to Raleigh Ophthalmology, and I said, well, where do I get this information that you're asking for? They said on our portal, and I said, I'm the youngest person sitting in this waiting room. Everybody in here is 70 or 80 or up. And do you think I think they know how to use your portal to set up their follow-up appointments and all that kind of thing? I said, that's hard for them. And especially if they've just had cataract surgery or had something wrong with their eyes. I said, you got to take into consideration that people may say, well, I can have my grandson look at my portal, but they need to see this in paper. And people say, how long should I keep my Medicare statements? You need to keep those statements for 18 months as paper statements, because that's the ceiling for filing claims with Medicare. If you see on your statement something that you know you did not receive, all of our volunteers and coordinating sites in 100 counties of North Carolina, all of our volunteers and coordinators are co-trained in the fraud piece as well. So they can help you walk through the steps of appeal. They can say, okay, you need to call your doctor's office. You need to say, why did you bill me? I haven't been to you, whatever. It could be a billing error. Or someone could have stolen the doctor's identity. Do you see what I'm saying? You remember when you used to go to the doctor and they would send like the yellow sheet home with you, because like 4 different colors of sheets, and it would have on there what they did? On that sheet, a friend of mine was in a very small town, and he was a primary care physician, and people would just drop him in his parking lot, and I go, Gary, you're crazy, because they've got your DEA number on there. They've got your federal tax ID number on there. And, I mean, you know, they can steal your identity. He said, not everybody in faith will steal my identity. I said, well, you just hide and watch. Because you have a huge 4th of July celebration, everybody from all over, everywhere comes, and they're all in your parking lot because you're across the street from where they have the big 4th of July celebration. You need to make sure that you protect your information. I gave everybody a vaccination card holder. You can put your Medicare card in here as well. People say, I'm just going to laminate my card. You should not laminate your Medicare card nor your Social Security card. I know that they ravel, I understand that. But there are fibers in that paper that Social Security can use to see if that is a valid card. So laminating is not well. Putting it in something plastic is fine, like this, a card holder of some description, but put it so that the numbers are facing the solid side and the back just as is nothing. I mean, you know, so your identifying information is facing the solid side. When you take it out, when you go to the doctor's office, you keep it turned down. I always watch where my insurance card goes when I go to the doctor. They usually have to scan it because they're going to be filing the claim for you. Open those statements, read them and check them for accuracy. I had a lady that told me one day, she said, oh, well, you know, I got good insurance, it's behind my Medicare. Well, I'm not going to go through all that. I'm not going to make that doctor mad and tell me I can't come back to see him. I said, well, you're not going to make him mad. It could be someone else has made an error or somebody could have stolen his identity. You need to make sure, I said, because you could have something to deny to you later that you wanted to have done, a service, preventative service. Medicare has a ton of preventative services. We want to make sure that you take advantage of those preventative services because that's what they were built into the system for, into the Medicare system for. How many folks have seen advertisements on television for people saying, you're not getting everything that's due to you? Yeah. And you may not. I have a lady that goes to church with me, and she has more money than Creases, but you'd never know she had a dime because she said, I'm tight-fisted with my dollar. We worked hard. I said, you're exactly right, Margaret. But she always on Sundays takes her choir robe off, and if I'm in the sacristy working on the altar guild, she'll come down the steps and she'll sing. They told me I live in the zip code that I can get my Part B premium back. And I said, Margaret, you do live in the zip code. She said, well, why can't I get it? Why did you tell me about this? I said, Margaret, you don't income qualify. I can tell you that right off the bat. You don't. She said, well, why do they call us and confuse us? And that is a valid question. Because they can. because property records are public records, tax records are public records as far as like where you're there. If you're going to register to vote, they don't care if you vote for a donkey or a giraffe or an elephant or a sheep. It doesn't matter to them. But voter registration records are public record and they can buy those lists. And it may not be the good people out here that you have known and trusted for years. It could be somebody calling from overseas. I tell people to put potential spams on their phones. And if it shows up that it's your doctor's office, don't answer it. Hang up and call the doctor's office with the number that you have. With the number that you have. Does anybody know where Swansboro, North Carolina is? Almost to Atlantic Beach. In Onslow County, getting ready to go over the river, the Newport River, to go into Carter County. And those ladies at Swansboro, now they don't take much mess. They have a good group, just about like this group. And I told them how before COVID to put spam blocker on, potential spam blocker on their cell phones. They all have their cell phone. Put that on there. And when I went back to see them summer before last for the first time that we could go back in person, they said, well, they still call. I said, well, if you answer and give them any information, or you say, yes, I'm Mary Smith, then they've recorded your voice and they've recorded the word yes, so they tell them what you're doing. This lady said, this man wants to sell me a scooter and he's calling from Newport, which is just across the river. It's right there at the Cherry Point Marine Air Station. And he said that, he wanted to get her a scooter. And he said he could have his doctor, she didn't have to go to her doctor, he would have his doctor certified. I said, give me the phone. I said, you mean to tell me this doctor's going to certify for her to get a scooter? She's already told you she doesn't want one, she doesn't need one, she won gold in speed walk in senior games. She said, but he's just so persistent. And I said, well, let me talk to him. And so I talked to him, I said, she doesn't have to go to her doctor? They said, no, he shouldn't have to go to her doctor. She can just go, she can just give us all of her information and we'll make sure that gets paid for. And I said, well, I told you that I was her granddaughter, but you know what? I told a little white lie, I'm not her granddaughter. I said, I'm the person who works for the North Carolina Department of Insurance for the Senior Medicare Patrol Program. And we are part and funded by the Office of Inspector General. I said, we have your name, we have your number, and we're turning you in. Of course, he hung up the phone. You couldn't understand a word that man said, so I knew he was not from Newport, and he did not have a doctor there. I started talking to him about, they have a big cook-off, a pig picking cook-off, a big barbecue cook-off area. And it had just happened just a few weeks before, and I said, did you enjoy going to that? No, I didn't know anything. I never heard of anything like that. And I thought, Newport makes Marion look like New York City. So, I mean, it's tiny, tiny, tiny. And every human being knows about their big cook-off. So I just said, you've got to protect yourself. If these people call and say, are you Mary Smith? And you say, yes, I'm Mary Smith. They have recorded your voice and they recorded the word yes. If they signed you up for something that you didn't want or you didn't agree to, they can come back and say, but we have it on recording that you said yes. So what do you think about that? You've got to be careful. I'm sure that our friend that's coming today that is retired FBI, we do these scam events all the time. I don't do them with him, but we do these scam events all the time with the Attorney General's office and with the Secretary of State's office, and they always say, don't even answer it. We do these scam events all the time with the Attorney General's office and with the Secretary of State's office, and they always say, don't even answer it, because if you pick it up, then they know it's a live number. Just let it ring. Just let it ring. Because if it comes up as potential spam, don't even pick it up and hang it back down. Or a friend of mine said that he, had a whistle. He blew into the whistle, into the phone. But I said, well, that really didn't do any good because it made them know it's a live number. That it's a working number because it's all done on robocalls. It's not, nobody is sitting down on 40 at a business calling. It's somebody spoofing this kind of stuff. So you've got to be careful. And you really have to take this into consideration, because anytime we ever have a federal election, like sending people to Congress, Congress controls Medicare, and we lost $68 billion last year to Medicare fraud. And they start talking, anytime that we have federal elections, they start talking about the solvency of Social Security, the solvency of Medicare. We continue to lose $68 billion a year to fraud. Nothing will remain solvent for many years. You need to know that all the years that you worked and you paid into the Social Security system under FICA taxes, FICA taxes, they were broken down into two sectors, OASDI and HI. Even my father, who worked for the railroad, they didn't pay FICA taxes, they paid into the Railroad Trust Fund, which was totally different, but it was still those same kind of taxes. OASDI is your Social Security check, HI is the Medicare Trust Fund. So when you become eligible for Medicare due to age, disability, end-stage renal disease, or ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, you're drawing that benefit out. You protect your Medicare benefit just as much you do as any other kind of investment or any rainy day fund or nest egg that you have to work for, that you've worked for and that you save toward your retirement. Please make sure that you do that. We're trying to tell you, not things to frighten you, but to remind you, if you really stop and think about it, it's almost common sense. But people just get flustered. They get very, very flustered. I was telling Waylon that Monday I was in Wilmington, and the district attorney had asked us to come and speak to his Rotary Club. And of course I didn't know who was going to drag half the judicial branch of New Hanover County with him, but he had the Chief Justice, the Chief District Court Judge was with him, the guy that was with the Sheriff's Department with him, and 3 lawyers. And they were all Medicare. They were all already Medicare. And the District Court Judge, Chief District Court Judge, raised his hand. He said, "Ma'am, can I ask you a question?" He said, "I thought I was a little bit smart." And I said, "Well, sir, I'm sure you are smart." He said, "This Medicare is too confusing for anybody." And he said, he said, "It's like I just threw up my hands and I was getting ready to go with something." And with a plan that was a private plan. And then he said, "My wife said, have you lost your mind? You are a retired military, and you're also working for the state as a judge. So you've got your benefits. You don't have to worry about that." He said, "Well, I signed up for one of those things that will give me a gas card or a Walmart credit card or something like that." He said, "I was going to go do that." She said, "No, you're not, because you work for those things." We had a lady in another county that, bless her heart, she signed up for several Medicare Advantage plans in one day because she saw this stuff on television. You have to make the decision and find out from your doctors if they're going to accept that plan and accept it for the next year. There's nothing wrong with it. You've given over the management to an insurance company. There's nothing wrong with it at all. But you've got to know how it operates. You've got to know how it operates. And that is what we do within the SHIP division, is we help you to understand about all of that. So, my time is up. Who has questions? The next time I come up here and I say, has anybody read their statement and checked them for accuracy? I want to see everybody's hands raised. If you don't understand what you're reading about, you can always talk to Waylon and the good folks here that do the work here in this county. Our services are free and confidential. If Waylon can't talk to you and you need something like quick, you can call our toll-free consumer line, 1-855-408-1212, Monday through Friday from 8 until 5, and you will speak to a live, breathing human being that works for the North Carolina Department of Insurance. We're not a call center that's just somewhere. We work for the North Carolina Department of Insurance. The SHIP and S&P programs are federally funded. Medicare is a federal health insurance product. We are housed within DOI. So if we have questions and things that we consider suspicious, we will gather that information, build your case, and run it up through the Office of Inspector General. That is what we do. Because those are the people that have they're the ones, they don't want to give me a gun and a badge. They want to give me a badge, but they don't want to give me a gun. Yes, ma'am?
Is the number on here the same number that's on your bill?
No. No, because it's calling 1-800-MEDICARE is on your bill. But 1-855-408-1212 is calling our toll-free consumer line at the Department of Insurance. And 1-800-MEDICARE does a wonderful job. They do. They do a wonderful job. But you can always call and ask us these questions. And then if it's something that we can't answer, Waylon has a number that is a unique identifier for him, and we can run around the whole time, and he can ask on your behalf while you're in the office with you. It's called unique identifier, unique ID. Who else has questions? Yes.
Will Medicare be good?
Will Medicare be cut? I hope not. I hope not, because it has people's health insurance, and people say, oh, I don't even want to mess with that stuff. It's just too expensive. And I thought, honey, you go out and try to self-insure yourself at 65 or 70 or 75 years old. You think the premium you pay is something. And there are programs available for folks that don't have a lot of money that can help them on their premiums as well. But I hope it's not going to be. That's a valid question, sir, to ask. That's the reason I said if we continue to lose $68 billion a year, I mean, that's not a scare tactic. That really is just kind of true. And it won't remain solvent. I mean, but we don't want to ever see that happen. Well, don't ever want to see that happen. But we got to be the best steward of our benefits that we can. Take what you learned today, share it with someone. That's what I consider change of behavior that you have been doing, and then share it with someone that couldn't come today. And also know that Waylon and his team are here to help you. They're here to help you. And they do a wonderful job. I have total faith and confidence in them. I do. It's all the way from signing up for Medicare, all the way to, I had to help a family member that passed away, their kids, help them get out of, what to do for their insurance or their health insurance.
Stephanie, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
You're so welcome.
Please give her a round.
Thank you, guys.
We appreciate Stephanie Bias talking to us about some safety programs involving Medicare. And now, locally, we have a special guest from our McDowell County Sheriff's Office. It's Captain Paul A. Alkire that is coming to speak to us this morning. Paul, did I do okay with that?
You did it right.
Let me do it one more time. Captain Paul Alkire.
You did very well. Anytime I make a phone call to anybody, they always say, can you spell that for me? So I just naturally say my name and then just begin spelling it for them anymore. So that way. Again, Captain Paul Alkire. I've been with the McDowell County Sheriff's Office for a little over 14 years. Also have the sheriff with me here today, and he's going to come up here in just a few moments and speak also. I was asked to speak on the topic of safety in the community, and that's a pretty broad topic. And with the time allowed, I really thought that the best focus, the thing that I wanted to talk about was things like credit card fraud and online fraud, the use of social media for fraud, because really that's what we see the most, and oftentimes it's generations, y'all's generations, people in their 40s and 50s that are often targeted the most for this. That was really what I wanted to speak on today. Who in here actually uses social media? Anybody? I know it's pretty common. Some people do, some people don't. That's a very common platform that is used for fraud. Sometimes you might hear the term where somebody's account gets hacked. One of your friends, maybe their account gets hacked and they'll send you a message and they may be requesting money. Anytime you see somebody requesting money and they're asking you to go to Walmart and get a Green Dot card, or they're asking you to go buy like an Amazon gift card or something, that is the absolute first indicator that this is fraud. And I want to go ahead and say too, if any of you guys ever have any questions or concerns that you think something might be fraud, feel free to come to us. Call us, come in, whatever. We'll look at it. I can probably tell you within a few minutes whether or not that it is fraud or not. So make sure, anytime, if you ever see anybody requesting money that way, you can almost be guaranteed that that is a scam. Somebody is trying to take your money from you. It's actually pretty amazing, some of the stuff that I have seen. I spent about 10 years as an investigator, and I worked hundreds and hundreds of these cases. They're getting pretty creative. as soon as one measure comes out and we figure out how to combat that, a new one out. I've seen emails that look like they came from Best Buy. I mean, just the same heading. You can't tell the difference sometimes. There's just small little things about that. That if you have any questions, feel free to call me. I can look at it and I can tell you whether it's real or not. Phone calls, IRS, those kinds of things. We see a lot of that still. Another thing I want to talk about that's really important too is never give control of your device, your computer or your cell phone, over to anybody. I can guarantee you that is going to be a scam. As soon as you give control of that over, they're going to ask for money in order to give it back to you. And what I mean by that is you may get a phone call from somebody claiming to work for, I'm just going to give an example, let's say Microsoft or Apple or whatever. They're going to say that your device has been compromised and they're here to help you. And they're going to ask you to do a few things. They're going to ask you to download something on your computer, and they're going to ask basically to give them control of your computer so that they can fix it for you. And this is a classic scam, because the second that you do that, once you give them control of it, you cannot get it back. And they're going to request some type of money or something in order to give it back to you. And we still see a lot of that. So be wary. Never give, there's no reason ever for you to ever give the control of your phone or the control of your computer to anybody else. The only time you would ever actually do that is if you yourself were having problems with your computer and you actually called that company and said, hey, I've got a problem, and they then said, well, we can fix it for you. Okay, that's fine, that's okay. But there's no reason for anyone to ever reach out to you and you do that. That is 100% going to be a scam, and it is definitely going to create a lot of problems for you. The biggest thing though we see right now though is through social media. And Facebook's probably the biggest culprit. So be very wary of anybody messaging you about any kind of opportunities. There's a big one that goes around about these free federal grants that they're just handing out to everybody. But the only way that you can get on that train is if you send in $500, but they want that $500 to be through the use of Green Dot cards, Amazon gift cards, PayPal, these kinds of things. And the reason they want you to use those type of cards is because once you give them the numbers on that card, they're going to take that money and you're never going to see it again. And unfortunately, we have seen people get thousands of dollars taken before they realize that they are being scammed. So if you take anything away from me talking about this stuff, because there's so much of it out there, and I could probably spend a pretty good bit of time talking about these things. If you ever have any questions, we're here to help. Feel free. I'll gladly, myself or somebody, we'll get somebody to look at it. If you have a question about anything like that, better for us to look at it and tell you whether it is legitimate or not than for you guys to be taken for some hard-earned money. I know most of you folks, if not all of you guys, I'm sure, are probably retired and every penny matters. So the last thing we want is any of y'all hard-working folks to have any of that taken by somebody through the use of a scam. So does anybody have any questions as far as this topic is concerned, or any topic really, as far as safety in the community?
Does the do not call registry not stop some of these scam calls?
No.
Unfortunately, no, because with the, again, as technology grows, a lot of good and a lot of bad comes out of it. They can make their phone number look like they're a local. It's really not even hard. I can make it look like I'm calling you from California. So those spam filters really don't work anymore because they can make themselves look like it's a local number. And that's another unfortunate thing. And that's so easy to do. Any other?
One way our neighborhood helps each other is Nextdoor.com.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta have people willing to get on there.
warn other people scams or people coming to the neighborhood that aren't supposed to be there. That's what that's about.
Okay, yeah, so nextdoor.com, very helpful. Yeah, and these scams, you know, they tend to kind of come in waves. We'll see a lot of the same type of thing for a short period of time, and again, then something new will come through. So that's a good resource. I don't know if everybody heard him say that. You said nextdoor.com is something that you utilize.
Download it.
Okay.
Whoever else gets on it in the neighborhood or other neighborhoods,
If they're seeing a trend of a problem, that's something you can get on there. So that's actually a resource that I was unfamiliar with. I will definitely look into that. So that's
good.
beneficial. So that's something we can definitely look at. Does anybody else have any questions? I know we got some hands raised over here. Yes.
I have a story to share with you, because we're doing these camp presentations every day. He said, everybody know that your high school annual is on the internet. Everybody's high school annual's on the internet. And that's the worst thing on the face of the earth to have. Simply because this guy called this lady and he said, I played football with your grandson at East Steuben High School. We won, I played this and he played that and whatever. And he said, I'm in the roofing business and I've ridden by your house and I really think that we need to take a look at your roof. And he told her his name and all this kind of stuff, said his grandson's name. And she said, well, you know, I don't think that I'm going to need those services. She said, but let me tell you something. I want to know, how did you know that was his grandmother? And he said, because in his last will and testament in that annual, he recognized his grandmother who had raised him and, you know, had supported him all through his career. In high school, played football.
Yes, so, that's a great example.
And she said, you are not that person that you said you are, because that person that you said you are is no longer living. That person has been dead since he was 24.
But that's a really good example of how easy it is to go, you know, simple it is to go online and get information, and they can seem very credible.
Yeah.
Very, very credible. They can make themselves appear like the knowledge that they shouldn't have, but it's really so easy to get, and so that's why you guys have to be very, very, very careful. And that one last little thing, and I'll answer some more questions. Something that can be done, and I know this is a very technical thing, but it's not that hard because there's a lot of apps out there to make this simple. Now, there's this thing called two-factor authentication. I don't know if anybody has ever seen it, and I will gladly sit down and help anybody with this. But what it is it's an extra layer of security that is very easy to set up. If you have a cell phone, it's already built in. And essentially, it is something that will help keep your accounts safe and make it very, very, very difficult for anybody to ever get into them. I mean, basically, you actually have to be in physical possession of your device in order to log into your stuff. So if somebody remotely somehow had your password and tried to log into your account, it's going to notify you on your device, hey, are you trying to log into your account? You're going to say, no, I'm not. And it's going to block anybody, and then you'll know that your password has been compromised and you can change it. And it's very easy. And I know I say it's very easy because it's something I've dealt with. So, but if anybody has any questions about that, or I can show you, I'll gladly show you. But that is a good way to protect yourselves as far as your electronic devices and your accounts and all this new wonderful online stuff that makes the world so convenient, but it also opens the door for criminals to be able to try to take advantage of that also.
They also will go through your email. I actually had one, I knew it was a scam when it came through, and they had been through somebody else's email and had emailed all of her contacts, and when they emailed me, they used her first name, which was on her account, but she didn't go by that, so I knew right then something wasn't right. And they wanted me to get a gift card, and she was supposed to be out of town and needed to give this gift card to a niece for her birthday. And they wanted me to go get a gift card, and then I said, well, how am I going to get it to you? And they said, well, you can give us the number. But like I say, I already knew what it was, and then I gave them a little sweet little thing right before I said, don't, you know, a bunch of stuff. And they'll go into your spam if you ever notice going into your spam, there'll be stuff that seems really legitimate, like FedEx has tried to give you a package, Walmart's tried to deliver something to your house, please respond. But I usually go in and I try to block all these addresses. Well, they just figure out another address to come through to your, so be careful of anything you open up also through email.
Yes.
If you've not ordered nothing, do not open it because it is a scam.
What was that called again?
Two-factor authentication. Essentially, what it is, and you've probably done this before, let's say if you're trying to log into an account, it'll send a notification with like a passcode to your phone, like a 6-digit number. So not only do you have to enter your password, you have to enter that code to log in, and that's just an extra layer of security to try to keep people from being able to get into your account. I have it on everything. I have it on everything I have, and it's proven beneficial because really just like 2 weeks ago, I got a notification on my iPhone of somebody in like China trying to log into my iCloud, and so I was able to stop it, and I changed my password, and no problems. But had I not had that in place, they could have very well got into it.
When you get a call like that and you know it's a scam, without even answering it, when you hang up, you see a little block the number. But I'll still get calls and it'll show that they're blocked, but I still get the calls from them.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I've saved it. And then I got an 828 from South Korea this week.
Yes, yeah, and so that's those where they can mask their numbers. That's very, very common. And it really makes me mad too, because everybody at the sheriff's office, especially the older numbers, are 828, 925 numbers. Sport is it. So I'll get that, and I'm like, oh, somebody, I just don't have their number saved. And then, got it. They got me. It's somebody in another country. But it'll look just like a Marion Verizon.
So the blocks on the phone really is not helping.
It's not going to help
It
that
doesn't.
stuff, unfortunately. Yeah, there's really no way to stop the calls. There's no way to stop the phone calls. We just have to be mindful of who it is, and if we realize that's what it is, just hang up on them. Any other questions before Sheriff comes up? All right. Sheriff Ricky Buchanan, he wanted to come up here and talk to you guys for a few minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and hand the podium over to him.
Good midday. I believe that's what it is. So thank you guys for letting us come today. And I always look forward to any opportunity to get in front of some people to let them know about some potential hazards and warn them of some things that we've seen and things we've dealt with. A couple things real quick, and some of these might seem real generic, but I want to make sure you understand, and I want to take the time to make sure that you hear it from me that this is important. And what's important is making sure your lights around your home works. Make sure the bulbs are changed. Make sure if you don't have lights, we try to get some lights. And motion sensors. Everybody familiar with motion sensor lights? Okay? Those are outstanding that you can place around your property. If you've got an outbuilding, wherever you keep things of value that you lock up, that you don't want somebody taking, throw some lights up, because I'm going to tell you something. During my time, I'm over 25 years in law enforcement now, and I have sat across the table from thieves, from a lot of different suspects where I've interviewed them, had the opportunity to interview them, and we knew what they did, but a lot of times I want to find out why they do what you do. Why'd you pick that house? Why'd you pick that car? Probably 7 out of 10 times they picked that house because it was dark, because it was easy. Why'd you pick the car? Why'd you break into that particular car? Because it was unlocked. What would you have done if the door was locked? I'd have went to the next car and tried the next car. So what I'm telling you, unfortunately, and I'm a product of McDowell County, raised in Pleasant Gardens all my life, went to church at Rocky Pass Free Will Baptist Church. And I remember those days of leaving your front doors open. I remember those days of leaving the keys in your car, the windows down, and the car's unlocked. Well, unfortunately, those times are gone. And I hate it. I hate it. But we've changed. And we have to do all we can to protect your property that you've worked for and secure it and do all you can to make sure someone don't just take that away. So I want to encourage you all. Lock your vehicles. Check your lights around your property. Signs in the yard. Now, what in the world am I talking about signs in the yard? Everybody familiar? If you don't have an alarm system in your house, or if you have an alarm system in your house, and I'm not pushing one particular brand over another, but I want to use two, for example, ADT or CPI. If you have an alarm system or cameras, they usually give you a sign to put in your yard.
And stickers to go on the window.
And stickers to go on your window.
Okay, right.
If you are someone that gets on the internet, I'm going to be willing to bet you can find some of those signs on the internet.
Yes, you can.
So I'm saying, even if you get a sign put in the yard that says this property is protected by surveillance and security, that's something you can do that's not going to cost a lot of money that might deter someone from coming into your place. They may go to the next yard. Unfortunately, they may go to the next yard who don't have a sign. So there's something easy that you can do. Also, the neighborhood watch. When I was a kid growing up, we had community watch. And believe it or not, this may not surprise you, we used to have community watch meetings at my house. And I remember the sheriff's office coming over to my house. Everybody from the neighborhood would be at my house, and we'd meet in the basement. And the sheriff's office would come over and give tips on keeping the community safe and how we could all have each other's phone numbers. And if we saw something strange in the neighborhood, we called the neighbors, and the neighbors called other neighbors. And well, guess what, folks? That still works today. Whether it's cell phones, whether it's text messages, whether you don't have a cell phone. If you've got a home telephone and you know somebody's phone number, call them and let them know. Saw this strange truck driving down the road today. Never saw it before. You all that live in the neighborhoods, you know what's normal and what's not normal. You know if you see a vehicle that you've not saw before. So pick the phone up, talk to each other. That's a great benefit as well. Now instead of community watch, we have neighborhood watch. Neighborhood watch, you can find more information about that online if you Google and look for the National Sheriff's Association. The National Sheriff's Association partners with Neighborhood Watch, and you can pull up information regarding Neighborhood Watch from the National Sheriff's Association webpage. It can give you ideas on meetings and what to talk about. It can give you ideas on, show you where you can buy signs or stickers, different things like that. You can look online at the National Sheriff's Association. If you decide, there are several of these groups in McDowell County and in communities where they're doing neighborhood watches. And they'll reach out to us, and we'll be glad to come out and give you a few minute spiel every so often, let you know what we're seeing, what's currently going on, if there's any new ideas out there. So we'd be happy to participate in any of those and help out however we can. Now, moving on back to the scams. I want to tell you this, and I'm trying to rush this up while I know we got another guest, but do not trust phone numbers. If your phone rings and you've got caller ID, don't trust the number on it. If Waylon calls me and it pops up as Waylon and I answer it, it's going to take me about 30 seconds to know if that's Waylon. But I'm telling you, now, people can call me hijacking Waylon's phone number to where it shows up on my phone as Wayland, and I'll answer it, and it's not Wayland. I've stood at my office, and I'm gonna tell you a couple stories about me. I've stood at the office, at the sheriff's office, talking to a person on the phone, and he says, look at your caller ID, and it'll tell you who I am. And I looked at the caller ID. You know what the caller ID said? FBI. Federal Bureau of Investigation. That was what was on the caller ID. And it obviously was not the Federal Bureau of Investigation. 2 Christmases ago, I am sitting in line with my family, waiting to drive through Grace Community Church's live nativity scene. My phone rings. I get my phone, I answer it, and they tell me it's the State Employees Credit Union. It's where we bank. State Employees Credit Union tell me they've detected some fraudulent activity. Okay, now put yourself on the other end of the phone, in my shoes. Great, because that's happened before. We've detected some fraudulent activity on your card. Mr. Buchanan, were you in Arkansas last week? No, I wasn't. Okay, good, we got that one. Were you possibly in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina? No, I wasn't. Okay, we've got that one. What about Colorado, sir? Were you in Colorado last week? No, sure wasn't. He said, well, good. Well, we can freeze these payments that's been pulled off your card in these locations. If you're telling us that's not you. No, it's not me. And so what we need to do, we need to confirm your social security number. We need to confirm your date of birth. Now, your year, you were born in 1974. Is that correct, Mr. Buchanan? Yes, that's correct. So see, they throw something out that's public information just to make me feel like it's more legit. My 10-year-old son, who's sitting in the back seat, I've got my call on speaker, so everybody's listening to my phone call. They say, if you'll pull have you got your debit card with you? I said, yeah, I sure do. They said, well, pull it out for us. I pulled the debit card out. They said, do me a favor, because we understand you may not know who we are, and we get that. They said, flip that card over. They said, do you see on the back of that card that 1-800 number? I said, I sure do. They said, now look at your phone. Take a second and look at your phone. Same number on my card is the number calling my phone.
But it's not.
And it's not the State Employees Credit Union. My son taps me on the shoulder. He says, Dad, I think it's a scam. I said, I like the way you're thinking, son. But it was. And I said, I tell you what, let's do this. I said, just freeze those transactions. I said, what's your name? And they said, my name's Robert. Robert, what's your last name? Well, we usually don't give out last names. And I'm calling out of Raleigh. And I said, well, I appreciate, number one, I appreciate you calling. I appreciate you guys doing your jobs. I'm going to call my local branch tomorrow, and I'll handle this. Matter of fact, I'll probably just stop in. They said, no, sir, you can't do that. We've got to settle this right now, or else you will be liable for these charges that have taken place. And I said, no, I won't. I won't be liable. I'll go to the branch in the morning and handle this. But Robert, give me a good contact number for you. At that point, he started cursing me and jumped off the phone. Now, obviously, this had nothing to do with the State Employees Credit Union. And I reached out to them the next day to let them know what was going on, that somebody was calling, pretending to be them. And they said they had gotten several calls about that before. So I hope everybody hears me when I say, don't trust who they say they are. Don't trust what the phone number is. And be smart. Ask questions. Ask questions. And if it's involving your finances or your banking institution, you probably have a local branch that you can reach out to and discuss whatever questions you have. And then, the scams and the money and things like this, you've won something. Let me tell you, I have been to several folks' homes that I personally know when I heard the information that they're at home today waiting on Publishers Clearinghouse to show up. No. Publishers Clearinghouse called and said, I am bringing you not only a check, but I'm bringing you a car, a brand new Mercedes, and I'll be there somewhere around 2 o'clock. And these are people that I know. And when I say I know them, I don't know them to be not in their right mind. These are people that I know, and they are believing what they're hearing on the phone. They're that real, they're that intimidating, and they're that pushy. And I'm going to tell you something right now, that's the ones I can't stand. Anybody that preys on our elders or tries to take advantage of the people that have worked hard all their lives and now they're trying to tap into their retirement and their savings, there's a special place for them. And that really gets on my nerves. And we do all we can within our means to try to go after them. But I want you to be mindful. 2 big things that I'd like to throw out for you all to take, for you all to share with your friends. These are 2 easy things. And if you do these 2 things, I think it will lessen your chances of being taken in a scam. Number 1, and they're simple. They're simple. Number 1, anytime I've won something, I entered something.
Exactly.
I bought a ticket for a raffle or entered for a drawing or filled out the paperwork for Publishers Clearinghouse and bought the magazines, right? So if you are being told you've won something, you need to rethink, did I enter something? That's your easy one, right there. If you've won something, you've usually had to enter something. If you've not entered something, leave it alone. Number 2, I'm trying to think how to word this. You should not have to spend money to get your money or to win your prize. And I've dealt with that time and time again here in McDowell County. And I'll be honest with you, there's nothing I can really do except try to prevent the person from going and spending the money. Because you're dealing with somebody overseas who's hijacked a phone number or an email address that comes back to nobody. And all we can do is relay that information to state and federal authorities. So be mindful of those 2 things. If somebody calls you and says you have won $500,000, and in order to claim your prize, I need you to go to Walmart and put $500 on a gift card, and they'll give you instructions, but that $500 will get you the $500,000. And they will make it so believable. It's what they got nothing else to do. They sit around the house, they have no jobs, they sit there probably eating a bag of Cheetos and drinking a drink and just dialing numbers. And if somebody will answer them, they're going to roll with it. I mean, if they get 2 or 3 to do it, that's not a bad day. Not a bad day's work. So remember, if they tell you won something, did I enter something? And you shouldn't, I've never had to go pay money to collect money or to win my prize. So So be mindful of that as well. All right, again, I'm Sheriff Ricky Buchanan. It is one of the greatest honors of my life to represent McDowell County and be your sheriff here in McDowell County. And I can't say enough about the men and women that put the uniform on every day to protect and serve all of McDowell County. And I'm just fortunate to be able to work alongside of them. So when you see them, thank them if you get a chance. Thank you all very much for having me. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Those Ring doorbells and those Ring camera things, talk to these, because everybody's kind of gone on tear lately getting those and putting them in their houses.
Yeah.
I mean, tell them what's good and what's bad.
Yeah, I mean, we see a lot more, and I had mentioned, or I had put in my notes, I just didn't have time to get to it, but the security cameras, listen, cameras are cheaper and cheaper these days. When they first came out, it was kind of a high dollar expense. They've gotten cheaper and cheaper over the years. The quality, you can still get some good quality video cameras that's not going to break the bank. That you can put up around the house to include these doorbell cameras. Those are good too. And just be mindful, anytime you're dealing with anything on the internet, whether it's cameras or whatever, be sure and safeguard that the best that you can, because people can always tap into different things whenever you're talking about the internet. But any kind of cameras are good for around your property. And final thing, one of the cheapest things you can do security-wise, and I tell people a lot, these game cameras, even if you're not a hunter, a game camera, you pick a game camera up about $40. To me, $40, if I've got a good spot to strap a camera around a tree on an outbuilding where I keep my lawnmower, summer's coming up with the tools, the chainsaws, I strap that thing on and let it sit there. That way if something does happen, you can pull and check it. All right? All right, thank y'all.
What Sheriff Buchanan was talking about is this: when you run into these really strange situations, why not give someone in law enforcement a call to say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? Just to see if they have any advice about the situation. It's better to do that than later on calling them out and do a report of something seriously happening to you financially. Well, I'm going to ask one more round of applause for Ricky and Paul and John being here today. It is now time for our keynote speaker. Today we have Andy Nasworth. Andy Nasworth coming to the stage. Andy is an AARP volunteer with an interesting history. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about himself today. So at this time, I'm welcoming Andy Nasworth to join us on the stage, and he has a nice long title to his. All I remember is the final part that's oh my. Andy, welcome on the stage. Please give him a round of applause.
Good morning. So my name is Andy Nasworth. I am an AARP volunteer. I've been doing that for about 6 months. My current job is I'm the membership and wellness manager at the YMCA in Black Mountain. A little history: I spent 10 years active duty Army, a year in the reserves, and then 14 years in the standby reserves. So got a good military background. I also spent just over 20 years as a retired, as an FBI special agent, all of that in Baltimore, so I've got pretty good experience with the fraud and what's going on. It sounds like the sheriff, had a lot of things I'm going to talk about today. It's interesting, just last week, the Better Business Bureau of North Carolina sent out a list of the top scams for 2022. And I'm going to read those and then talk about some of those. And during this presentation, if you have any questions at any time, please feel free to stop me and ask. I'm not an expert. I know I've heard some good things come out from members here, so let me know. But online purchasing scams, employment scams, phishing scams, that's a big one. And I know the sheriff talked about phishing scams. That's where you may get an email or a text from what seems like maybe a legitimate organization, and they are trying to get your identity. That's one way these crooks, these criminals steal our identity. And like was mentioned, you may get that email that's supposedly from your bank. Anytime you get these unsolicited emails, phone calls, text, delete the email, delete the text. You know, as far as phone calls, the sheriff did mention, you may get a phone call from, it can say your own home number, but anyone can fake these phone calls, these phone numbers. So it's important, if you don't recognize the number, don't answer it. If you have an answer machine, to leave a message, you can reply. If it's important, if you don't have an answer machine, they're going to call back. And like the sheriff mentioned, well, I'll give you a personal example. I got a text from my bank about 6 months ago that, and I do get legitimate text sometimes from the bank, but it was, did you make these charges? Click yes or no. And our first response is, oh man, someone's, you know, stealing my money, and you wonder, I almost hit reply knowing I shouldn't. So, and the number was, like the sheriff said, the number was my bank's phone number, the exact number. I took a breath, I called my bank, scam. They did not text me, so I'm glad I did that. But the emotion sometimes is what can get us to fall for these traps. So we have to make sure we think before we respond to these. The imposter scams, and you may have had this happen to you. I've gotten a call from the IRS before that I owed money. Strangely enough, the individual had a very strong Indian accent. I could barely understand him, but the IRS is not going to call telling you you owe money. If they do that, hang up. Be aware though, the scammers, they, with social media and like the school yearbooks online, they will do social engineering and they will know sometimes a lot about you to try to pull on your heartstrings and get you to fall for their scams. I've got, besides the IRS, I got a call, and you may have gotten these, from an individual telling me that someone had stolen my social security number and was in jail, and I could pay a fee up front to get that taken care of. So again, I didn't fall for that, but if you get a call where someone is wanting you to, they're saying you're in trouble, and maybe you have past parking tickets, and they want you to pay it on the phone, don't do it. It's a scam. Another big scam that my mother-in-law almost fell for is a grandparent scam. So if you're not familiar with that, my mother-in-law got a call, and in this case, the scammer through social media knew that she has 2 grandsons. One of them was Clayton. So the caller says, Grandma, this is Clayton. Couple of red flags there. She goes by Nana, not Grandma. So that was a little red flag. But he was in Raleigh. He got in trouble. He didn't have his wallet. He needed money. She conversed with him, which he shouldn't have done, to the point where she almost was willing to send the money. And he got very pushy, but luckily she said, Clayton, call your parents, and she hung up. So be aware, it's not always just a grandparent. It could be a loved one or a friend is in trouble. They need money, they need it now, and it could be a wire transfer, a computer transfer, or gift cards. Gift cards are the big scam because they can steal that money instantaneously, which very good friends of mine, her father-in-law got the grandparent scam where they needed to be paid in Home Depot cards. He went to Home Depot, and there was even a flyer at the cashier's office, at the cashier saying, "This is scam, don't buy Home Depot cards." He did it, $1,500 worth, out that money. Went home, sent the scammer those numbers on the back of that card. The sheriff mentioned two-factor verification. That's very important to do. Also, you can set up, if you do online banking, to where you get a notification. In my case, if it's anything over $200, I get a text and an email. You can make it any amount you want. How many people write checks and put those in your mailbox? So I would tell you to stop doing that, because thieves do drop through neighborhoods, they do steal mail. You want to mail a check or anything sensitive, take it to the post office. Don't put it in the outside mailbox, take it inside the post office. Because even in the mailboxes, thieves have gotten to where they'll use a sticky rat trap on a string, open the blue box, put it down there, and steal mail. So take it inside if you have something to mail. The tech support scams I heard was talked about, again, just reiterate that. If you get a call from someone saying you have a computer virus and they want to take access to your computer, don't do that. He also mentioned the lottery scams. You get the email from Prince, whoever, that you won the lottery. They want you to pay for those taxes. Don't send money to get money.
Andy, do you have anything about locking down their credit?
So you can lock down your credit through any of the credit bureaus. Very easy to do. You can also lock down your social security number. And when I got this call years ago that said my number was compromised, it was concerning. So I called the Social Security Office Administration, and you can in fact lock your number down so no one can use that to open credit cards, bank accounts, get loans. But you can do that. It's a good idea to do that.
And Andy, we want to make sure they understand with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, you got to lock them down each one of those.
Yes,
It does not cross over.
Yeah, you have to each one. And it's free. Don't let someone, want to charge you for that. You get that for free in credit reports. And as far as the banking, I recommend you check your banking information daily. And something you can look out for is for unauthorized charges. It can be as little as 1 penny or $1.20. If someone does have access to your account, they'll make a minimal charge hoping you'll miss it. And then next month, when they realize that charge went through, they'll empty your bank account. Question?
Could you repeat that again to
So,
lock down Social Security? What 3 places do you call?
TransUnion, Equifax,
And
and
Experian.
Experian.
Those are the 3 credit bureaus, and you have to call each one of them.
Well, you can actually,
Trans, Experian, and
you can lock down basically like credit cards, freeze your account so an unauthorized person can't gain access and open up other accounts and safeguard your.
Down is freezing.
Yes, sir, freezing your information. But back to these unauthorized charges, it's going to be a minimal amount, hoping you'll miss it. And then the next month when that goes through, they'll empty your bank account. Probably 5 years ago, I woke up and my checking account was drained, every penny. Not sure how that happened, but I got it back from the bank. But just check those accounts daily. We talk about passwords, and I heard that mentioned along with two-factor authentication. I encourage you to change your passwords often and make them very, very unique. Often sites give you the option to use their chosen password, which is 20 or 30 different combination of letters, special characters, or you can choose your own. Make it unique Don't make it anything personal, your cat's name, your favorite color, anything someone can find out. Make it unique and change it often. Another scam is, you may get a call from someone or an email from someone claiming to be an expert banker, financial investor, and he has a great deal for you, and he wants you to invest, but you have to do it now. Don't fall for that. Also, you still get some mail, you may get mail saying free lunch seminar. Can be a free lunch, and listen to our presentation. Some of those are real, some of those are not. The ones you know are not real is when they want you to buy into their company right then. You have to make a decision now. Don't make any decisions like that. Talk to family, talk to friends. Don't make any quick decisions like that. The reason I brought up, I missed this one, the reason I brought up not putting a check in your mailbox is because, and it was in the most recent AARP magazine, is there's what they call check washing. And criminals can get your check and basically use Clorox to change the amount, to change a payee, and then use that check. That's why you need to secure those. What questions are out there?
It's not a question, it's just a fact that we learned. Like if you're at a restaurant and you pay with your card, don't use a debit, use a credit. Because if the people working there steal your number, the bank will cover it because it's a credit card. If you use your debit, you've lost your money.
Yeah, credit card is safer. The debit card, sometimes you can get that back.
In the machines, you can, in your self machines, you can use a debit.
Yeah.
But if you're handing somebody a card, pay for food, always use a credit.
You're much safer with a credit card versus a debit card.
Hey, Andy, did you have any information on veteran scams?
So I've got a little bit, yes. Some of the veteran scams are, number one, wanting to make veterans pay for their records. Veteran records are free, you never have to pay for it. You can find that through va.gov. You will have scammers want to get your DD-214, your military record form, and they can use that to steal your identity, steal your retirement. Veterans will sometimes get a call from someone wanting to buy their retirement for a quick cash annuity. That's not legitimate. That was just going to take the retirement. There's employment scams for veterans, quick, easy work, and a lot of money. Those are typically scams. Those are some of the top veteran scams.
Waylon, do you have a veteran service officer?
We do have a veteran service officer on site.
Which is great. That's always a good person to come and talk to.
And another important thing to protect is your Medicare ID number.
That's me.
Don't ever give that out. Someone calls asking for it, do not give that out. And that's very
You can say
important.
your name and say yes.
Did you say debit or credit is?
Credit is safer. You've got 30 days to dispute that. Debit, it comes out of your account right away. And you can dispute that with your bank and often get that back, but the credit overall is safer than the debit. Other questions? And just a couple of things. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And just don't make any quick rash decisions with these phone calls you may get. Thank you for being with us today. Well, that concludes our scan presentation. And I'd just like to say to the people watching at home and online, thank you for joining us to see this interesting event. Remember, if you do find yourself a victim of a scam, you want to make sure you talk with local law enforcement, also the North Carolina State Attorney General's office.
And if you do think that something might be a scam, please take time to make that phone call to our local law enforcement here, or again, to the North Carolina State Attorney General's office, or if you run into something that you want one of our staff to take a look at. We have dealt with sweepstakes scams, veteran scams, we have dealt with just mail fraud, we have dealt with people's credit cards being taken here. If you do run into a situation, remember, I and my staff can also help get you connected with the necessary resources for that. But I appreciate everybody being here today. Please give yourselves a round of applause for being a great audience. Thank you so much.